For most New Yorkers, it's hard to imagine that less than 30 years ago, the Lower East Side was the scene of ugly confrontations between the city and so-called squatters living in abandoned buildings. Now, to keep that history alive, there's a new addition to New York City's long list of museums, the Museum of Reclaimed Urban Space. Inside this year-old museum, Bill DePaula is preserving a piece of New York history that he knows firsthand.
I helped start this museum with a lot of pictures and a lot of video and a lot of memories. A lot of these things that are on the wall I was actually involved in.
DePaula is the co-director and co-founder of this new and unusual museum. Reclaimed urban space refers to things like abandoned city-owned buildings and vacant lots. Those were plentiful in the Lower East Side of the 1980s when groups of people known as squatters moved in illegally.
They were these collectively run places. They weren't perfect. You know, you had to grab your water from the hydrant and you had to get wood to make heat in the buildings. But then the gardens were beautiful, so you can grow your own food in the garden.
The residents of these so-called reclaimed buildings were a controversial issue in the city, and many were eventually forced out.
I have a lot of respect for squatters, and I know it's a difficult word for people to understand, and it goes right to money. That's all they want. Are you paying rent? It's like, you know, it's not about rent. It's about community. It's about a different way of lifestyle. It's about sharing. It's about Skillshare. It's about fixing up your own place instead of relying on a bank. So I know it's difficult for people to understand, but the museum is trying to educate people about it.
About a dozen buildings, or squats as they're called, were allowed to remain occupied by squatters after a deal was struck with the city in the early 1990s. One of the buildings, called C-Squat, now houses the Museum of Reclaimed Urban Space.
This space became available in C-Squat, and I thought, what a great place to put a museum right in the middle of the Lower East Side, where a lot of this stuff happened, and in a kind of famous building called C-Squat.
DePaula started the museum with his own collection of photos and documents. He also archives and displays contributions from other activists and organizations.
These pictures just came in the other day. And it's crazy. I mean, this is someone's idea of an envelope. It's just two pieces of sticky notes with their name on it. So there's a lot of history in these pictures. And again, these are people just dropping them off.
One of the museum's goals is to educate the public about the roots of things like recycling and urban gardening.
One of the things we're really trying to get across with this museum on the Lower East Side, the History Museum, is that so many of these things that poor people, people who lived in this neighborhood, that they were involved in, later on, New York City, this huge city, adopted these programs. Three major things: composting, recycling, bicycling, and also community gardens. These activities that were started by activists then became so popular and sustainable that the city then adopted them.
There are weekend tours that take museum goers to nearby gardens, squats, and other historic sites.
I mean, a lot of the gardens started out as squats. I mean, they were squatted land. It was, you know, land that was not being used, but it was city land not being used.
Another part of the museum's mission is to clear up any misunderstanding that might linger about the so-called squatters, who are now legal residents of their buildings.
I think the squatters have been given such a bad deal with history. It's unbelievable the way they talk about them in the media. And we were very lucky by an unfortunate accident that happened. Superstorm Sandy came when we were just about to open the museum. People were pulling up in cars like, you know, my refrigerator has no power. And they were giving us like their hams and their food, and then the squatters came down and started cooking up all this stuff. They had barbecues on the block. We were making electricity on the block, all within hours the next day. And for the first time, the squatters got great press, 100%, no questions asked. The squatters were out there feeding people cooked meals. And we accomplished our goal before the museum started. As an activist, I'm always hoping personally that people are gonna see some of this stuff and then they'll be like, wow, you know, you did some of this and you didn't have any money? Because I thought I couldn't make a difference in the world. And I'm like, no, you could make a difference.